William Birkin, one of Resident Evil's greatest villains.
He lived the life of a great biologist, but was slowly consumed by his own creation.
He sorta made his first appearance in RE2 and later made an appearance in RE0. Welcome to Bird'sTale, the series where we take any character from any media, break down their life, and analyze their character. Today's subject is William Birkin.
William Birkin, born sometime in 1962. Not much is known about his early life. What we do know is that he was a prodigy, earning his doctorate at a very young age. After finishing college, William was scouted by Umbrella, and he would attend Umbrella's executive training facility. The facility was a boarding school designed to train the next generation of Umbrella execs.
However, since its opening in 1968, many of the students were deemed unfit for Umbrella. But there was something different about the year 1978. The students that year were criticized for being lackluster, but there were two exceptions. Those exceptions being William Birkin and Albert Wesker. The two prodigies were noticed by Dr. James Marcus, who was the co-founder of Umbrella and the director of the facility, and they would become his proteges. After the facility was closed following a series of illegal human experimentations covered up by Umbrella, Birkin and Wesker were transferred to the Arklay lab as senior researchers.
At the Arklay lab, the two were introduced to Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor was a young woman who served as an Umbrella test subject since 1967, but I will talk more about that later.
There, the pair also worked on a T-virus, and they helped create a new strain, that strain being the beta strain. In July 1981,
Umbrella hired the child prodigy who graduated from a prestigious college at the age of 10,
that being Alexia Ashford. Alexia Ashford was believed to be the granddaughter of Umbrella's co-founder, Edward Ashford, and Birkin hated her. I mean, he was the youngest senior researcher in Umbrella's history until that 10-year-old brat joined the company. After her arrival, William wanted to prove himself, so he took on as many projects as he could. The first project was fixing the problem of the beta strain. What was that problem? 10% of the population was already immune to it. This was something Birkin was able to work around with the development of bioweaponry. He was successful in creating the Hunter Alpha and the Cerberus BOWs. Well, now you know. Birkin's imaginary rivalry with Alexia Ashford was the reason Hunters and Cerberus were created. In 1983, 2 years after Alexia Ashford began working at the company, there was an announcement informing everyone about Alexia Ashford's death. But that wasn't the case. This was just the time that Alexia Ashford went into cryogenic sleep. After receiving this news, I imagine that Birkin was happy since this means he won. I don't know what, but it means he won. During his time in Arklay, Birkin began dating one of the researchers there, that researcher being Annette. He married her in mid-1980, and in 1986, Sherry was born, the person who I may do a video on next. In 1988, 10 years after the training facility was closed, Oswald E. Spencer sent a team to assassinate his former partner, Dr. James Marcus. The team was led by Dr. James Marcus' former students, William Birkin and Albert Wesker. As James Marcus was dying, William Birkin said he will be taking over his research. Back at the Arklay lab, William began his own experimentations on Lisa Trevor. William noticed that all the experimentations done on Lisa Trevor was taking a lot of her cognitive abilities. To try and mitigate this process, William planted a nemesis parasite inside of Lisa Trevor. However, Lisa Trevor's body fought and killed the parasite, but she was able to gain some of its genetic material. Birkin began to try to understand why this happened. While examining Lisa Trevor, he noticed a mutant strain inside of her. Birkin believed that this mutant strain could have existed in Lisa Trevor's body since her first experiment in 1967. When examining the mutant strain, he discovered it had the ability to revive cells and rewrite the genome. Birkin and his new strain was noticed by Oswald E. Spencer. This would lead to the construction of the nest, where Birkin will be head researcher. The nest was mostly dedicated to the G-virus, but note, the T-virus was being researched there as well. Birkin was then transferred to the nest alongside his researchers, one being Annette Birkin. You would think the hardest part of the transfer was finding new test subjects. But with the abduction of locals, and remembering that line that says you can't kidnap an orphan they weren't wanted in the first place, if you know where it's from, comment down below for those who don't. The researchers had enough test subjects for both projects. With all the human experimentations happening at the nest, Birkin put Raccoon's police chief, Brian Irons, on his payroll, not only to keep people from investigating the nest, but also to keep the G-virus safe.
With Birkin now working at the nest, he no longer can work on the T-virus at the Arklay lab. So a researcher was transferred from Umbrella Chicago to the Arklay laboratory to take William's place. The researcher that took his place was John Clemens. Who the hell is John Clemens, you asking yourself now? Well, John Clemens is Ada Wong's boyfriend. Well, not really her boyfriend, she was just using him like she was using Leon, but you get it. John Clemens was also somewhat of a goody two-shoes, judging Umbrella. But what the hell am I doing talking about John Clemens on a Birkin video? In 1998, aka the worst year to be anywhere near a raccoon, the Epsilon strain infected many researchers including John Clemens at the Arklay laboratory. Also around that time, many Cerberus POWs escaped. The loss of the Arklay lab was likely the reason for the attempted reopening of the Umbrella training facility. This reopening was spearheaded by Birkin and Wesker. On July 23rd, the Ecliptic Express was sent to the Umbrella training facility. However, it was attacked. The passengers were killed and mutated into zombies. 2 hours later, Star's Bravo team went to investigate the Arklay Mountains. Once there, they were first to land. They then decided to split up and Rebecca Chambers came across the Ecliptic Express. There, she met, can't remember his name, Billy Cohen. They then found themselves at the Umbrella training facility after the train began to move. Unbeknownst to them, the entire situation at the facility was being monitored by Birkin and Wesker. Wesker and Birkin's surveillance was then interrupted by Dr. Greenleaf's James Marcus, and it is revealed that he is the one who attacked the Ecliptic Express. Believing that if the information about Dr. James Marcus' assassination is released, it will be the end of Umbrella. So, Wesker tells Birkin of his plans, but Birkin can't just leave Umbrella yet. He hasn't finished the G-Virus, so Birkin makes the decision to destroy the facility. After the events at the training facility, Birkin made his way back to the Umbrella nest. After Wesker's betrayal, Umbrella HQ slowly lost their trust in Birkin. For a good reason. I mean, he did kill his mentor at the drop of a hat. Feeling this distrust, Birkin began to think that maybe he's not gonna get that executive position he was promised when he came to the company. Then Birkin will find out that Umbrella sent spies to steal his research on the G-Virus. Birkin, now being completely done with Umbrella, told Chief Irons to find those spies and eliminate them. Birkin also began negotiating with the US military on selling them the G-Virus. However, Wesker wasn't the only Umbrella mode inside the US military. Umbrella learned about Birkin's plans. Umbrella then made the decision to take the virus by force. On the 22nd of September 1998, after completing the G-Virus, Birkin began to leave the nest to sell the G-Virus to the US military. Umbrella, knowing about his plans to sell the G-Virus on the 22nd of September, sent the USS or Umbrella Secret Service Alpha Team, led by Hunk, to recover the G-Virus. The team arrived as Birkin was leaving the laboratory. He was then gunned down after attempting to resist. However, Birkin doesn't die. Realizing that he and Dr. James Marcus share a lot of similarities, Birkin infects himself with the G-Virus. I think Birkin believed that his body could stabilize the G-Virus, or he just really wanted revenge on Umbrella. You know what? He just really wanted revenge on Umbrella. That's why he infected himself with the G-Virus. Birkin then began to mutate into a G-monstrosity. One of Birkin's last acts before his mind was completely consumed by the G-Virus was following the USS Alpha Team into the sewers and completely slaughtering them there. Birkin, still somewhat in control, consumed the G-Virus samples to prevent it from being stolen again. However, the USS Alpha Team also took a sample of the T-Virus from Birkin, and in the commotion, the vial containing the T-Virus was destroyed, and it was later consumed by the local rats who helped spread the virus to Raccoon City. The US military would barricade the city to prevent the spread of the virus and to prevent any information relating to them from leaving the city. During this time, Raccoon sewers fell under the control of rejected G embryos. G's will to survive and procreate was the reason they went after Sherry. Because of her shared DNA with Birkin, she was a prime candidate for its larva. During its search for Sherry, it would implant one of its embryos inside of Brian Irons, under his office. But Chief Irons wasn't a great host for the parasite since he did not share Birkin's DNA.
Birkin would follow Sherry and Claire to the sewers, and in the sewers he was successful in infecting Sherry. This would cause Claire to take Sherry to the Umbrella Nest to find a cure, and G would follow them to the nest. In the nest, G murdered Annette Birkin. Note, by this point, Birkin was basically gone. Claire was successful in creating a cure for Sherry, and they began to escape the destruction of the nest. Once they boarded a train leaving the nest, G attached itself to the rear carts. They were forced to abandon the train, and G was caught in the exploding facility. This is something that I didn't do in my Wesker video, part of the reason why, because I didn't have Resident Evil 4 remake. In the remake, there is no changes for why Birkin infects himself with the G virus, and not much changes for how the T virus spreads throughout Raccoon. And G would go after Sherry for the same reasons as the original. It would follow Sherry to the police department, and in the machinery room it will be defeated. It would follow Sherry to the orphanage. There it would infect Chief Irons, allowing Sherry to escape. When looking back at this scene, I asked myself this question: why didn't G infect her there? And well, I came up with two answers for that question. One, he did, because we don't know exactly when Sherry is infected with the G virus, or Birkin fights back and G isn't able to infect her. I'm choosing to go with the latter. Why? I'll explain that just a bit later. Just like in the original, you can see how Birkin was being slowly taken over by the G virus, and once he reached his third mutation, Birkin was basically dead. G would die in the same way as the original, by being caught in the exploding facility. Before I played Resident Evil 2, I knew just a little about Birkin. And when I first played the game, I expected Birkin's story to be about a father trying to protect his daughter, but not realizing that he was the one she needed protection from. After finishing the game, I just said, well, I was wrong. I even started to think that maybe Birkin never even loved Sherry. Maybe I wasn't completely wrong. I believe that one of the things Birkin wanted was for Sherry to be safe. I know that he and Annette weren't the greatest parents, but that's the thing that both of them wanted for their daughter. William and Annette never wanted Sherry inside of the world of BOWs because they knew how dangerous it was. Now, why do I say that? Because when you look back, Sherry knew very little about their work. This means when they were home, they never talked about their work, nor did they ever bring it with them. They wanted to keep Sherry as far away as possible from the world of BOWs, with one exception: Sherry's locket. I believe the only reason that locket existed was just in case something happens to the G-Virus samples. They could always have a spare, and only Annette and William would know about this locket. And also remember, when Birkin was negotiating with the US military, he doesn't ask just for his own safety, but his family's as well. When writing this script, this was the first thing that came to my attention. Now I'm going to answer the question that I've been trying to avoid so much in this video. Did Birkin love Sherry? And well, I came up with my answer while making this video, so this portion is not written in the script. I think he did. In the original game, there is this scene before playing as Sherry. Sherry says that she heard her father calling out to her. And to me, this is proof that while Birkin was losing himself to the G-Virus, one of the only people he was able to think about was Sherry. And I think Birkin's love for Sherry was the reason he didn't infect her at the orphanage in Resident Evil 2 Remake. William and Annette weren't the greatest parents. In fact, I will say they were terrible parents, but they did love and care about Sherry in their own way. Now let me talk about the thing that Birkin seems to be completely obsessed with in all the games he appears in, and that is his research. As we all know, Birkin is completely dedicated to his research. He is willing to use human test subjects to complete it. But why is that? I feel that for Birkin it never really was the research. It was always what he was going to gain from it. When working on the G and T viruses, Birkin never really cared about all the human experimentations he was doing. The only thing that mattered to him was his executive position. At first, he believed that once the G virus was completed, his executive position was ensured. This is also one of the reasons I feel Birkin helped assassinate his mentor, because it meant he would get closer to that executive position. However, once Birkin realized that that executive position wasn't never going to happen, Birkin began negotiating with the US military, and now the completion of the G-Virus symbolized his deal with the US military. And if the G-Virus was taken away from him, that means his deal with the US military was also taken away from him. This is post-production test here. I said that it was never the research for Birkin, but I don't think that paints the whole picture. When it comes to the G-Virus, it's just a little different. The G-Virus was something special because he created it. It was his life's project. Birkin felt connected to it and he couldn't just allow it to be stolen. So it's not only that the G-Virus symbolized his deal with the military, it was also his child. The next thing that I want to talk about is Birkin's pride. Birkin was proud that he was the youngest prodigy working at Umbrella. However, once Alexia Ashford came, the 10-year-old prodigy, Birkin felt like he lost to her, so he had to work as hard as possible to prove that he was better than her. This is the main reason why I feel that Birkin's relationship with Wesker wasn't gonna last very long. Because those two most likely would have ended up clashing, and I would go so far as to say that Birkin would have ended up dead. I've rewritten that last chapter so many times, but I still know I'm not gonna be satisfied with it. I just hope you guys like it. Oh my god, I hate doing outros, but let's get this over with. Recently I heard someone say this, and I think this describes Birkin perfectly. No matter how terrible someone is, they still have somebody that they care about, and that cares about them. Birkin was a horrible person who used children as test subjects and didn't care for human life, but he did love his family, and they loved him. But Birkin lived the life he wanted. And just imagine if Birkin, with his dedication, would have invested his life in research that helped people. Thank you for watching this far into the video. If you liked it, you can give it a like. If you didn't, thank you for the watch time. And subscribe to the channel if you like the content. You can always comment on what character you want me to do next. Anyway. You still here?